A warm welcome, the Italian Dev here. In today's video I will show you how you can easily set up Google Analytics in your Next.js web application. We all know that most of the third-party script we use, like for example Google Analytics or maybe the cookie consent banner, could hugely and negatively impact on user experience, especially if they are render blocking and delaying any page content from loading. And in this scenario, the Next Script component comes in our help, and with the right loading strategy we can skyrocket our web application performance. Remember, if you like this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It will help me a lot. Enough said, now let's go straight into the code. So let's start by creating a new Next.js project. Let's open the terminal, mine is already open, and type the command npx create next app, and I will call mine analytics next. Let's wait for the installation process to be done. All the dependencies needed are now installed, so we can navigate into our newly created folder, Analytics Next, and open it in our text editor. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. Now, what I'm going to do for this project is to initialize a GitHub repository. So we can upload all this file to GitHub, and then we can deploy this basic web application to Vercel, so we can work with the domain name given by Vercel and use it to set up Google Analytics. It's a really simple process, and it will take only a few minutes. So let's start by typing git init to initialize GitHub repository into this project, and git add to all the files. Now it's time to move into GitHub website to create a new repository. I will call my, again, analytics next to be consistent with the naming. Public, it's fine. Let's create the repository, and now it's time to copy paste these commands here. And we can now push all the files to GitHub. Here we are. So going back to GitHub repository, if we refresh the page, we can see that all the files are successfully uploaded. So we can move now to the Vercel website. If you don't have an account, you can easily create it. It's for free, and deploy the application by importing the repository we just created. All the configuration are now fine, and then when we will have the measurement ID provided by Google, we will add it as an environment variables. So now it's time to deploy the application. And while Vercel is deploying our web app, we can move to Google Analytics website and create a new stream. So to do this, we can navigate under admin section, data streams, and here we can create a new stream. As a chosen platform, we are going to choose the web platform. Then we can call this stream Analytics Next, and let's wait for Vercel to deploy this application so we can have a URL to put here. Enhanced measurement. For this process we can disable this feature, since we don't need to track outbound click, scroll, visuals and video engagement and more. We just need to track page views. It's okay. Oh, cool. So our default Next.js application is deployed, and we can check if everything is working fine at the given URL. Perfect. So we can copy now this URL and paste here, removing the HTTPS prefix that is already configured from the drop-down menu. If you have, usually the default selection is HTTPS. If you have HTTP, remember to select HTTPS. So we can create the stream. And from the Google Analytics website, everything is fine. We have now our measurement IDs, and we also have the script, the code we need to add to our Next.js application to set up Google Analytics into it and have our page views measurement work fine. So we can move again back in Visual Studio Code. The first thing I'm going to do is to open the nextconfig.js and create the environmental variable object. So we can add the measurement ID, and I will call it Google Analytics ID. So back to Analytics website, so we can copy it and paste it here. So let's do it also on the Vercel website, so we are sure we are not going to forget it, as usually happen. It's easy. We can go on Settings, Environmental Variables, the value here, and the example name we can just copy paste the one we've chosen before. Add. Perfect, it's done. So now it's time to add the Google Analytics script to our application. Now there are multiple ways we can do it. One way is to add it here in the index.js file, but as we know, if we want to track, now we have just a single route that is the home page, but if we add another route, let's say the about page, then we have to add the Google Analytics code also in the about page to track also the visit in the about page and so on. So the best way to do it is to add it in the _app.js file, because we all know that this is the component that wraps everything. So let's start by importing the script component from Next script. And now let's create a React fragment, move the component inside, so all the page can be rendered by this app wrapper, and add the script component. So let's begin with this one. So the script component here receive two props. The first one is the source, and we can take it from the Google Analytics page here. So the source is this one. As you can see, here is the measurement ID, but we want to add it from and load it from the environmental variable. So we can use, instead of a string literal. So we need to use backtick. Let's copy this URL and paste inside the backtick. And instead of hard coding the measurement ID value, we can add it from the process.env environment.google analytics ID. And then we have to tell the script component with loading strategy we want to use. And in this case, we want to load this script only after the website is interactive. So this means that this script will not load as soon as possible, but will only load after the web app will be interactive. So it means that we'll speed up the user experience, improve the user experience, since it's going to speed up the interactive time in which this web application could interact with our user. And so we can type inside the strategy props after interactive. In this way we define our loading strategy. Perfect. So the first part is done, and now we need to add the code. So again, we have a script component, and this time we will give as props, because Next.js need it, an ID, and we'll just call it Google Analytics Script. And this ID is used internally under the hood by Next.js to understand what type of script is facing, he needs to handle, so he can track it and he can use the best strategy to load them. So now we have just the script, but let's say we will add another script component that need to handle the cookie consent on this website. So we have two scripts, and giving each of them a unique ID, Next.js engine will know how to process them and to load them in the fastest way possible. And again, we need to type the strategy. So after interactive. So inside we can type our code inside, again literal string. So backtick. Again, let's give them space. It's time to copy it from Google Analytics, and here we are. So copy, paste. Now again, as you can see, we here have the hard-coded value. So simply delete them, and remember to maintain here the quotes, because we need them, and inside we will load our environmental variable. So process.temp.google Analytics ID. Done. Now that the Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics scripts are globally injected, we need to define a custom function to track page views or route change. It's a common practice to put all the third-party library-related code into a separate folder. Let's create a lib folder inside another folder. I'm going to call mine Google Analytics, and inside this newly created folder, an index.js file. In this file, we define and export an anonymous function named pageview that takes an URL as parameter, in which we call the gtag method on the window object. The gtag method takes three parameters: config, our measurement ID via environment variable, and an option object in which we assign the value URL to the key path URL. Now that we have our custom function set up, we can move back to the _app.js file and import useEffect hooked from React, and use router hook from next router. We need these two hooks because inside the useEffect hook we are going to subscribe to one of the router events provided by next router. Let's start initializing the router inside the app component. And inside the useEffect hook, define a new anonymous function. We are going to call this function enderRouteChange, and this function receives a URL parameter, and then inside we are going to call our custom function defined before inside the lib folder. So before to move forward, let's import star as GA from WAP undirectory /lib/Google Analytics. So we can now call the pageview method and pass the URL. Done these steps, it's time to subscribe and listen to the route change complete event, calling the on method on routes.events, and pass to it our handle change complete. To avoid any memory leakage, we need to unsubscribe to this event too, and so we return from this useEffect hook a cleanup function that in this case is the off method when the component is unmounted. And at the end, we pass the router.events as a second argument of useEffect. To test now what we have done so far, let's create a new page about.js and export a simple about page component. Inside the div tag, let's open and close the Next.js component so we can define a title tag and understand when we are on the home page and when on the about page, whence we will move to the real-time section on the Google Analytics website. Remember to import add from Next.add. And now to finalize that this simple component, let's add just a simple h1 tag, so we are quite sure we are on the about page. Now we need just to link the home page to the newly created about page. So just under this h1, open a link tag which wraps an a tag, go to the about page, and define the href prop on the link tag as /about. At the top, import link from next link. And now all the coding work is done. So, time to test. Finger crossed. Let's open the terminal and type npm run dev. So open a new tab, let's type localhost 3000 and open the Google Analytics website too. Let's navigate to the real-time section and let's see if the page view tracking is working. So let's refresh the home page, and as you can see, the home page visits goes from 5 to 6. Cool. Now let's navigate to the about page and let's see. Okay, lowercase p, because I did some tests before, that's why the other about page with the uppercase p is here too. It correctly shows under the page viewed. So now we can commit to GitHub so Vercel will redeploy the updated version. So let's type git add dot git commit m, and let's write code to track page views on routes change added. So git push. Now let's move to Vercel website. And as you can see, Vercel is now building the web app and deploying it. So the website is successfully deployed. Let's test also the deployed version. And we can see that from 6, the home page goes to 7. And now let's try the about page. And this one goes from 1 to 2. Cool. So let me show to you just one last check. So we can inspect this page and see the actual code. Here we have the Google Tag Manager script we injected thanks to the Next Script Component, and here the Analytics script with the related code. Now we can move to the GTmetrix website and we can see, exploiting the GTmetrix website, that our loading strategy, thanks to the Next.js Script Component, is working perfectly how we want. So, perfect. So if we go to the waterfall section and check the JavaScript tab, we can see that here we are. The Google script, Google Analytics script, is loaded by the web browser at the end, perfectly at the end, after the other important script that the application need to start interact with the user. And for this tutorial is all. Thank you for watching this video. Remember, if you liked my content and if you think that this tutorial could be useful for you, to hit the like button, to comment in the comment section down below, and to subscribe to the channel. Bye bye, the Italian Dev. Thank you for watching.